running full speed, but the markets are faster. Quasar Markets Live brings the world's top financial minds to you. Everything you need to know in one place. Learn from elite educators and gain a competitive edge, leveling the playing field for you. Join the conversation. Quasar Markets Live.
Good morning, Quasar Markets Live. I hope everyone's having a good start to your Friday. We've got a market that's rattled, reactive, and rotating right now. We're seeing some classic risk-off moves come in play after the dramatic escalation in the Middle East. While we are a financial, services or financial market live stream here, you got to cover what's going on in the news. Last night, Israel, markets are digesting right now. Israel's surprise airstrikes on Iran. Reportedly, it killed a lot of Iran's Revolutionary Guard top military leaders. And Iran has, in response, launched about 100 drones in retaliation. Supposedly, they've been swatted away, so good to see that. Hopefully, that is the case. Good morning, Ron. I hope you're having a good start to your day. But, again, they have vowed revenge after IRGC commanders were killed. This is what the markets are reacting to right now. We're looking at QQQ I have on the screen. Again, the ETF that tracks the NASDAQ right now slated to open down about 1.26% here this morning. SPY holding up a little bit better, looking to open down about 1 percentage point. And in general, markets are fairly weak. Although what I would say is the capitulation looks like it might have already happened. We'll need to see what happens at the, cash market open. But so far here, we are holding up this morning since about 8:30 or so. Pretty well at a stage. We actually tried to recover most of the morning before turning back down a little bit. With that being said, like I said, the Dow futures are looking to be down about 1.2%, S&P down about 1.2%, NASDAQ about 1.5%. Numbers have come up slightly since I did this earlier this morning. This kind of shock has pulled some capital into the safe havens. Gold hit 34.44. Now down a little bit, 34.38 here, but up about 1.55%. When you want to think safe havens, think treasury, gold, and the dollar, and all three of those are up. A little surprising, silver's down a little bit, and crypto down a little bit, especially Bitcoin. I expect the rest of crypto to be down because, again, most of, or if not all of the alts are basically nothing more than a tech company. But Bitcoin, which should be a safe haven here, back below 105, I will point out, held up nicely down at the liquidity zone that we've been watching here for a while at that, 102.8 area where it dropped to. It dropped right down to the bottom of the liquidity zone, the area where we had found strong support earlier in May, and now recovering a little bit from there. But question for Bitcoin is going to be, does it now go back to range trading in between that 103 and 106 area, or can we break back above the 106 and actually see recovery? Like I said, gold doing really well here. The other thing that is skyrocketed overnight has been oil. It is actually pulling back here this morning, but you can see WTI shot all the way up. It was up over 8, almost 9% earlier this morning at 74 and change. Here we go. They were +8 on supply shock fears. Again, while we don't get a lot of our gas and oil from Iran, they do control some of the seas and the straits there that are necessary to move a lot of the oil. So no surprise to see these extended moves to the upside here. And again, we see WTI now back above 72. and Brent at almost 74 here. So we do see definitely things still moving. Did see some analyst remarks today. Michael Brown at Pepperstone said that geopolitical risks are often quickly priced in and more quickly unwound. So be careful if you are chasing here today. You know, most military conflicts see equity markets bounce within 30 days. But if the oil supply is hit, history says we could see a prolonged pain. Keep in mind, you know, again, if they have not attacked the oil refineries yet on either side, if that happens, you're looking at something, you know, very different than what we see so far this morning. And let's now switch over, like I said, a little bit into commodities. And again, crude oil up about 8% on supply shock fears. Brent reached almost as high as 91 before dropping off. Gold 34.44 before retracing a little bit, but you know, not trying to get towards the all-time highs of 35 yet, but slowly and surely climbing back towards those ranges. And you can see this is this 35.50. We only broke above that once on April 22nd to set the record. Otherwise, this is right at about the historic high besides that. So, you know, these spikes we're seeing are textbook safe haven flows, but keep in mind that spikes like this really sustain unless the supply picture truly collapses. So, you know, does this get contained or does it break into a more regional confrontation? Does Iran make the mistake of targeting U.S. forces over there or U.S. diplomats? Those are the things to keep in mind. But in the short term, it could be an opportunity for energy stocks, especially APA, OXY, XOM, all of them up about 3 to 6% in the pre-market. With that being said, airlines getting hit pretty hard here as jet fuel is soaring. We see, you know, again, one of the biggest expenses for airlines is the cost of their fuel. And we do see a lot of hits, especially when it came across that sector. If we look also, Delta Airlines down about 5.56% here this morning, expected to open at about $46, just above their 50-day MA. American Airlines also down about 5.5%. As we said, it's even hitting the cruise lines. Carnival down about 6.24% here this morning. And Royal Caribbean down about 4.42. You know, if we look at the different segments of the Spider Select Funds that break down, you know, the different segments of the S&P 500, there is only one in the green right now, and I guess everybody can guess what it is. It is the energy sector, up almost 3.5% here this morning, XLE. And you can see this one's trying to break, but it's been under its 200-day MA since April 3rd, trying for the first time to break back above that on the energy sector. You know, again, so those are sort of the plays. If you are looking to chase today, XOM, you know, ExxonMobil, currently up about 3% here. You can see reject. Oh, no, never mind. Yesterday rejected its 200-day MA, but now going to open well above it, well to the top side here. You know, again, the question is, does this continue to run through the day, or do we start to see a little bit of calmness start to settle back in? Other sector, of course, to keep, and again, like I said, the energy sector, you've got APA also up 5% here today. All of these climbing. That's the one that was stuck just below the 200-day MA here. So for me, this one gets interesting. APA, you know, rejected here at the 200-day MA. This could give you a short opportunity, either selling some calls above that 22 level or around that 22 level on any kind of broach or try to break and reject of the 200-day MA here on APA. Occidental, another one, one of Warren Buffett's favorite holdings there. You can see sort of the same situation here where it's trading at 47.01, just below its 200-day MA. So it's going to be interesting on these energy names. For me, unless it can break through those significant, 200-day MAs, these would be names to probably fade today, right? And you could look to do that a couple of different ways. Straight short selling the stock if that's what you like. Otherwise, looking to maybe sell some calls or to buy some puts. But there's a lot of ways to, do this. And those are some of the names. The other area that definitely to keep an eye on today are going to be defense stocks. And we know some of these have been beaten up recently as talk of contracts being retracted here in the U.S., right, by the Defense Department, especially under Hesgus there. He talked about it, and we know that just recently, Lockheed Martin had dropped all the way down to 443, taken a pretty big hit to the downside, now up about 6% here today and yesterday, and trading back up towards the highs of where it was. Question here again, does it approach the 200-day MA? Are you buying the hype? Do you think this is an extended sell-off? Do we see a next level of capitulation? Those are all the things you sort of have to ask yourself today. Or is it a buy the dip opportunity? Yeah, Ron, Restoration Hardware, we're going to get through the individual ones here down the road. But, yep, they are definitely taking off a little bit here. And again, airspace closures widened, and there is at risk a lot of the Middle East routes. So that is what everybody is watching today in the aerospace area is, does it continue to move to the side there? We'll talk a little bit later about AMD, but they unveiled their M1 400 chip overnight, and OpenAI is a confirmed customer here. So they are one of the stocks. And let's start to talk about the stocks that are moving up or down here in the pre-market. Like Ron said, Restoration Hardware up about 19% here this morning. And you can see, they've had a horrible performance year to date in general. Year to date, this stock is still down about 55% in the last year, or year over year, still down about 40%. And even with this jump up, still down about 22% over the last month. So, I will point out, nice bear market bounce here. But Restoration Hardware, in my personal opinion, still has a lot of, headwinds in front of them to keep an eye on. I'm going to pull up. I don't have my other notes here. Give me 1 second. Here we go. Here we go. Actually, that is not the right one. This one, let's see here. There we go. It's just going to be easy to pull it up from here. So Restoration Hardware, as Ron mentioned earlier, nice beat. I will point out they still had a top line revenue miss They were looking to come in at 818 million, came in at 813 million. But when it comes to their earnings, it was supposed to come in at negative about 9 cents, came in at positive 13. So definitely it has the market moving to the upside from that. When it comes to Robinhood, RH, I always think is Robinhood's, is Restoration Hardware. Another one moving up nicely here, Novo Nordisk, now again reclaims the title as the largest European company in the Eurozone. Nice little move up here, up about 3.5%, almost 4% here in the last 2 days. Again, Novo Nordisk, and the big news there is that they their CEO is stepping down, and they are moving up really nicely on that news, quite honestly. On the downside, we have Tesla was down about 2.2% here. Now down about 1.77. So seeing a little bit of love here. Tesla sliding after the president has rolled back those California EV rules. So again, while Elon came out and apologized and said maybe he shouldn't have said some of the things about the president that he did, stock still getting hit here. And again, part of that reason is that they're going to roll back some of those EV rules under the current administration, and that is weighing on them. Another one, of course, we know about yesterday. We had the unfortunate plane crash in India, and that is definitely weighing on Boeing stock here, down about, in the last 2 days, down about 14% here. But, trading back right at that 200 level. We had been up at 218, or excuse me, down about 6%. 6%. I was wondering where those numbers, it took my computer a second there to catch up. Back down at that 200 level here on Boeing. We'll find out what's going on over the next few days or weeks there, and hopefully get a little bit more, of a look into that deadly air crash. AMD, as I mentioned, has released a new chip, and it is confirmed that OpenAI is going to be one of the purchasers. With that being said, it doesn't seem to wow people. AMD down about 2% here today, was down about 2% yesterday. Again, another one couldn't get through that 200-day MA. That's why I mentioned again, we do know 200-day MA, one of the big, easy sort of to watch indicators. This one got knocked down right at it and still moving to the downside here. So AMD, after their earnings, definitely not being well, or not earnings, but their news, wasn't it was well received as you would have thought there. Another one really selling off, GME, GameStop. People don't seem to be too impressed with their move into the Bitcoin treasury world. And you can see here, after dropping 22% yesterday, down a little bit here in the pre-market, trading at about $22. It did get as low overnight at $21.54. So it is bouncing back a little bit here this morning. We'll see if the Wall Street Bets crew still has faith, or are they going to dump the rest of their holdings. That will be something to keep an eye on. I do want to point out we had a new IPO yesterday. It didn't have all of the craziness that we had seen on some of the earlier ones, but Chime was not showing up. CHYM, it should be CHYM. Well, that's a crazy wick. This is almost nothing compared to what we saw with the openings of Voyager, and before Voyager really circled, the one that we'll take a look at here next. But we can see continuing to slide down here Chime fintech company, interesting company. We'll see how this does here. I don't have a personal opinion on them one way or the other. Never used them. I do know Ashton Kutcher and all those folks were heavily involved in it, and it was a good way for folks to sort of get a start in the investing world. Like we said, Circle has been the one that has been capturing all the eyes on Wall Street. Continuing to slide down here, but a little bit of a bounce back this morning. Did get as low as 104. I've mentioned here on the show, I'm more of a buyer on any kind of move back towards this mid 80 level. So we'll keep an eye there, see if we can get any kind of click there. Adobe was another one here that had their earnings. They had a beat. They raised fiscal year guidance, but the stock is down again. Some of these companies, no matter what they report or what they give you on the news side, don't seem to get the markets moving to the upside. And again, Adobe down almost 4.5% here this morning. And if we take a look, they had, again, a revenue beat. They were expected to come in. They beat it by about 1.27%. And they also beat their EPS projection by about 1.75%. But again, what we see, market not liking the news, and it is dropping to the downside. This is one for me on the other side. Maybe a drop to this 50-day MA gives me a buy the dip opportunity here. So for me, I want to see if we get a continuation. Do energy plays continue to move up? Do defense plays continue to move up? Those are the sectors that are, rising right now. Do we see this sector continue to move to the upside? Do we see defense trio continue to pace pre-market volume, or do we see it move the other way? And those, we've seen the blow off top already. We start to see a pullback from those. And then on some of these ones that are down, is it a buy the dip on Tesla? Is it a buy the dip on Boeing? Is it a buy the dip on AMD and Adobe, which both announced good news, and dropping on it? GME, for me, it's a little bit harder there to be a, buy the dip person there. I do also want to talk a little bit. We are about 2 minutes from the open. You want to see here, ticks down about 75 right now. Advanced declines negative about 22.99. Doesn't look like the Qs is moving all that much. It is trying to move a little bit to the backside, but again, it was trading back here at 830 in these levels. It's trying to get back up to. So it's not like it's trying to break two highs of the morning session. What it's trying to do is come off of the lows of the morning session. So that's what we do see on a bunch of things right now. Can they break above the lows of the morning session and hold those? Yeah, run all those energy names. Diamondback definitely included in them for sure. You can pretty much take an oil company. I bet if I look at Marathon Oil, it's probably doing pretty good too. Not as much, only up 52, only up half a percentage point here. But yeah, energy, defense stocks, those are the things moving up right now. We don't see a bunch else moving to the upside. If I look here, in fact, this is a great way to look at it is using trading views scanner. I'm able to see, although Williams Sonoma, there you go, Ron. I didn't have this one on my bingo card, up about 5% here. Question is on Williams Sonoma, is this their own earnings or is this because of what we saw with Restoration Hardware? Doesn't look like it's based on earnings. And we are open, market's open. Let's see what we get here. Williams Sonoma moving up, looks like, based upon the news that we see with Restoration Hardware. Tick negative 500. Oof. Hard hit off the bat here. Advanced decline moves negative 4,700. So again, that's where we start to look at. for negative 47.50 here is the open on the advanced decline. So that's sort of the target. Can we start to see this move back up, or do we continue to move down? You know, it can go as far down as negative 7,000 or so. And we've seen it on days recently where it's been down to 55,600. We'll say Q's took a nice jump. Algo is buying up the dip here. So we do see a buy the dip philosophy as the cash market opens so far on the Qs. Wow, really jumping here, really jumping. Qs now. So now we've broken through those early morning highs, and now we're actually recovering nicely. Nice move up by the Qs. So it looks like there are some buy the dip opportunities or buy the dip retail traders so far. So hopefully you didn't capitulate if you were in a trade and you're allowing this to play out, because again, we've erased about a 0.5 percentage point of downside already here. Almost 75, 80 basis points of a recovery here on the Qs. SPY, same thing, moving up to the upside here. So far, so good. And we're doing this with the tick still fairly negative and advanced decline still sticking about that 47. So this, I got to look at the mag. I wonder if this is people buying up the mag. We do see Tesla's moving back up here, but only down 1.3, was down a little over 2%. So we see that. Let's take a look quickly at those APA and those other names we were looking at. The big energy, are they continuing to get the love here this morning, or are we seeing a sell the news? We are seeing a little bit of a sell-off here, APA, not a tremendous amount, but a little bit across APA. Ron had mentioned FANG a little bit earlier, Diamondback Energy. That's holding up a little bit better here, so not really much of a sell-off there so far. Let's take a look across those defense names, LMT, Lockheed Martin. We are seeing some profit taking there, so profit taking here a little bit on Lockheed Martin. Take a look at RTX. Raytheon too. So we are seeing the defense names that were high flying this morning are seeing a little bit of a pullback here. Energy not as dramatic so far. Let's take a look at Oxy here. Yeah, pulling back too. So now we're seeing those energy names pull back also. So we are seeing first move here of the cash open. Again, doesn't mean that's what it's going to do today. A lot of times the first move is a false move by the algos to trap you in. What is moving up nicely, Tesla now, you can see here, was as low as 312.90, bounced off that VWAP here twice and took off to the upside. Just broke to the highs of the morning. So we are seeing some strength here come across. Tick has gained about 200 to the positive side, or excuse me, advanced decline 200 to the positive side. We will have Mr. Flanagan in a few minutes. We want to talk to him. You know, dollar again, safe haven move to the dollar we saw here, but you know that jump wasn't as dramatic as maybe we might have expected to see here. So I do want to ask him whether, you know, what does that mean for the markets? We do see Qs now sort of leveling off. Tick getting a little bit more neutral. Bitcoin struggling here again. It's moving to the downside a little bit on the cash open also. Like I said, we want to see what happens there. Same thing, we're still pulling back across gas and crude. And again, when I say that, it's still up 5.74%, but been about well above 8% here. We do see the 10-year and the 30-year and the 2-year all picking up steam also. So not surprisingly, again, what is a safe haven play? Getting into U.S. treasuries. That seems to still be happening here this morning. And those are actually still moving to the upside. So yields are still moving to the upside. Bonds seem to be the answer right now as to where people are going. Dow Jones down about 1.15%, and this has not bounced back. This is trading towards the lows of the day, not all the way to the lows, but fairly close. SPY down 70 basis points. It did make a nice move to the upside, broke above 600, but not able to hold above 600 so far. Q's 530 looks like the line you want to kind of keep an eye on. We're at 529.50. It did make one move to 530.01 before pulling back here a little bit. So, again, there's some round numbers to keep an eye on. And not surprisingly, the RUT, which is the Russell 200, a small cap, 2000, excuse me, covers more of the small cap, smaller companies, down the most, down 1.13%. VIX did jump up on that news here, and we can see not as high again. This is one that's moving down, but it had jumped up to 22, now back down around 19.6. That's why we talk about, VIX. I mentioned it last week when it started to break down to that low 17, just above the 16.99 handle. That that's when you buy the VIX, when you buy protection, when you don't need it for those times of turmoil that come at 8 o'clock at night when you least expect it sometimes. Did mention most of the droppers so far this morning are airlines. United Airlines down 5.66%, Carnival down 5.64%, Delta down 5.3%, American down about 5%. So we do see Norwegian in here also. So all of those sort of companies, RCL in this list, also down about 4% here today. So we do see travel sector definitely getting hit hard. I personally am going to try to keep an eye on Delta here, where I think it could start to be interesting to me. It already bounced a little bit too much. That was the play. Like I said, airlines, while this is a temporary disruption to airlines, it's not a long-term disruption, in my opinion. This was sort of the play there. See if it retraces, gives an opportunity. Excuse me. Adobe, we talked about down even on good earnings and a good forward guidance. Trying to see what else. Applied Digital getting hit here again, down about another 4%. Firm Holdings down about 4% also. Western Digital. We see some of the chip names or the components around chips getting hit pretty hard also here this morning. Not sure what has the banking sector down so much today. But banking definitely getting hit real hard here. JP Morgan down 1.35. Bank of America down 1.4. Wells Fargo down 2.23. So we do see a drop across all of the banks. Nothing's really bucking the trend. Let's see what's moving the most to the upside here, besides what we've talked about. Again, Elbit Systems makes sense. An Israeli company, defense company, up about 2.9 here. Again, a lot of these are either energy companies, like we said, FANG, APA, Methanex, Ford Energy, Viper Energy, Patterson Energy, Occidental, all these energy names. And if they're not energy names, they're utility names in general that are filling out the rest of the things moving to the upside. So That is where the money is moving so far this morning. USAR. Yeah, I don't know anything about them. I'd have to look more. $121 million market cap. That's pretty small. That's an interesting run, Ron. We'll take a look. We'll have to ask Steve when he gets back about it. Doesn't look like up until November 22nd. Was this a SPAC? I had to guess because of the way it traded so long without any movement. It was a SPAC that figured out here in December what they were going to buy. And just looking from basic market structure, the most basic, it's made its first big move. Second move was shorter. Third move shorter here. If you get a pullback here, this actually has a terrible setup, quite honestly. Got to see what it does here. Not saying it's there yet, but if you don't get a higher high out of this third big attempt, because this is a daily chart, this kind of market structure is a breakdown in market structure. It means that you're seeing too much selling, too much muscle memory, so to speak, in this area. When you start to break to the upside, people are quick to sell off. Look at that candle here on the 25th or the 16th of April. When it made its first move, you can see all these folks that had bought towards the top sold off. So you would need to see more of a transfer of money. And what you don't see here is a consolidation zone. You see too many dips. Yeah, it's a trade only. Absolutely. Trade only. It is definitely. I like it for that, for sure. I am going to add it to my watch list here. But this would definitely be a trade only, not a long term hold for sure. Thanks, Ron. We'll see. Bitcoin mining companies, I've been watching Mara for a while here, trying to get an entry. Could give me an entry here on any kind of further slip. Was hoping for it to get back down to that 1450 level with Bitcoin getting hit so hard and crypto hit so hard overnight. But they're being pretty resilient, to be honest with you. So far, they're being pretty resilient. Bitcoin 1053. So again, buy the dip mentality definitely in place, right? Buy the dip mentality is definitely in place. Seeing reports that Visa is down on some large merchants. Well, 5260. So nice move back up here by crypto. Okay, let's see what else we've got going on so far. Man, advanced declines right back at that 46.59. So we tried to make a move. We tried to see people were buying the dip, but now the dip is back in play. Like we said, be careful that those first moves in the morning are usually the ones that go in the opposite direction. You can see it's pulling back here as we're watching. Tick still negative, minus 300 here. So could see these slide off. Now Tesla's still holding up pretty well, 317. The mag, Nvidia's back below that 143 again. Apple back below 200. So you buy the dip buyers, you're starting to get to some of those areas you like on some of these, those round numbers. Oh, Apple getting hit here pretty hard now, down 1.11%. Nvidia also. So, we're seeing this across everything. We'll say it was kind of interesting. I noticed that Ford's holding up really well here. Didn't really get affected by the news much last night at all. Yesterday was trading, I think, closed around 1043, 1054, excuse me. Now trading about 1047. So Ford holding up pretty well. I wonder if that's across all the car. Could show you some good, decent opportunity here to show you if they're not going to fall on these. Yeah, GM too. So not too bad across the auto industry, holding up pretty well here. Robinhood actually up here. That makes sense again, right? Those trading houses are going, whether or not prices go up or down, Robinhood doesn't care. They just want you to trade. And on volatile days like you see here, you see lots of trading volume. You know what I'm interested to? How are DLTR? How are the inexpensive stores faring here today? Holding up pretty well. I was curious because we know that Restoration Hardware, Williams Sonoma taking off. So the high end, Dollar General, I don't know what they're, DG, didn't know that. So they're holding up pretty well. That side of it, TGT, what's Target doing here today? So retail and they're down about a half a point. So, okay. Okay, I see him stepping into the room. We are going to talk the dollar. Why did it not go up more than it did last night? This should be the way when people are putting their money. I see him here. Let's bring him into the room. Mr. Flanagan, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, Howard. How are you today? We see that the Dixie is recovering on the Middle East tensions. Safe haven appeal of the USD is back in play, but you're right, not a significant bounce here because of the overwhelming bearishness in this market.
Yeah, I like I said, I look for it to move. It started to look like it was going to just jump, and it sort of slowed down. Is that just the bigger overarching? You're saying it's more of a bearish view on the forex market, on the DXY right now, on the dollar?
Yeah, I tried yesterday and today, especially today, to find a scenario where, somebody has a bullish forecast. And in my entire career, 40 plus years in trading currencies, we've been bearish on the dollar for almost all of it. So
yeah, okay.
It's a well-founded, especially given the, tariffs, it's well-founded that the market is, well, I'll be honest, I feel quite blinded here by the perception, the narrative of a short dollar play. When you begin to look at things, though, there's a lot of subtleties out there. The technicals, the momentum is beginning to ebb and turn up with this move. So this could be a shocker for Monday. Watch today's closes very carefully. I talked about Wednesday. On Wednesday, watch the Wednesday close. It's working very well right now. And my target in the dollar index is last week's close of 99.20. Now we're well short of that at 98.40 here. So unless we get price action above that level, this is a sell the rally mentality right now in the dollar.
Yeah, and I know it gets a little bit out of your wheelhouse, but your wheelhouse is pretty large there. I don't mean that as a bad as a slight. Is we're seeing it, the sell off of XOM, off of the energy. It looks like it's ranged. We're still stuck in the same thing, right? Any big dips getting bought by retail, any big move to the upsides getting sold. I'm assuming institutions are the ones that are selling on this upside. I don't know.
I would imagine so. And as we talked on Wednesday, the institutional side of this market is so entrenched in the narrative and the view, and it's being echoed by all of the forecasters that you see throughout all the news wires and on the shows. They're all, pounding home that, the dollar, and also interest rates, and that the U.S. is in a debt problem. Look, when you talk debt, you have to, and this is how my wheelhouse is big because for the viewers, this is what trading currencies does. It forces you to step back and look at the global world, not just in the US, not just what you're being bombarded with. Let me explain. Let's look at, we talked Wednesday. I couldn't wait to get here Friday, not because of the Middle East tensions, but because of the number of economic releases that were coming out. So you want to be a dollar bear? Okay, let me paint the picture from Wednesday to Friday here. UK GDP minus 0.3. It was only expected to be minus 0.1. April industrial production in the UK minus 0.6. April's manufacturing production minus 0.9. That's just the UK. Japan industrial production for April minus 1.1%. How about, let's talk about inflation. Our Fed seems to feel inflation is perhaps there. Well, let's look at Germany's CPI that came out in May. Plus 0.1, 2.1% on the year. Bang on to the projection. France, CPI, minus 0.2, only 0.6% on the year. Eurozone industrial production, minus 2.4. The trade balance that Europe has for April, only $9.9 billion surplus. Only? That's coming after March's $37 billion surplus. And Canada, bring it home here in the North America. Manufacturing sales minus 2.8%. So after April, the world, in March and everything, everybody was talking about the period of time where, everybody jump started. So we saw all this growth. We saw all the money move into Europe because, hey, that's where all the growth is right now. Fizzle, burn, pop. It's gone.
Yeah. No, I mean, and that's what I think is more scary to me is that there's nowhere to run right now. And that's what I mean.
You nailed it. That's why, and that's why everything is flatlining.
Right.
Because everybody has parked where they want to be, but now the subtleties, I always refer to the tectonic plates under the financial market. They're beginning to crack and move. Has the earthquake hit yet? In other words, to get everybody out of the positions? No, it has not. So the conditions for trading today are what we've seen. Buy the dip, sell the rally, or as Steve loves to say, buy the dip, sell the rip.
Yeah.
And that is the prevailing logic. What I try to point out from my macro point of view, from the FX point of view, is that the subtleties are changing, and I'm looking for the play. Yes, I am looking for the dollar to trade higher, but I'm a king dollar man. But, sure, I've been absolutely hammered on that idea and trade. So I have a lot of levels that I need to break to see that scenario. I'll start in the dollar index, 99.20. That's what I'm watching. I can zero in on some of the currencies. We're talking the Eurozone is suddenly beginning to crater economically. 115 right now, or 115.20. Last week's close was a lot lower, 113.93. So the euro is really holding up here in the face of economic numbers that are coming out and beginning to show a significant weakness. So the currency that highlights really is sterling, which I highlighted all those negatives. It's presently around 135.35. Last week's close was 135.25. So if you're looking for early indicators, maybe the sterling is one to watch. If we look at what's gone on in 24 hours, the first move on the Iranian news was sell dollar yen. Why? Because the yen, as I've highlighted, is a safe haven currency. And dollar yen traded down into the mid 142s. Presently, it's at 144. Why is it bounced back? Because a higher oil price is not good for the yen or the Japanese economy, which, as I just showed, April industrial production minus 1.1%. So,
right. And just for our newer viewers, there are people are saying, wait a second, why is it not good for Japan? They don't have any oil. So they bring in all their oil. You know, the countries that have oil right now, like Russia, Putin's sitting there shaking his hands, saying, let's get some of this stuff out of the ground and let's get our economy moving in the right direction. Let's sell oil today.
that's right. And last week's close in the yen, even at its present level, 144.10, last week's close was 144.81. So miles away. Well, not really in the currency market, but still a long way away from being able to say, I think dollar yen's going to trade higher here. Yen is still a safe haven. If we look at the, North America,
and you just nailed it. I don't know if you noticed, I switched over to Mexico is the next one I wanted to ask you about, the peso.
Yeah. So we've got the dollar. And if you don't want to be outside of the North America sphere and you want to trade our time zone, you've got CAN and MEX as your offsets. Brazil, yes, but not necessarily here in this scenario. MEX at 19, where are we now? 1902.65 was last I saw it.
Yeah, 1904, right there.
Okay, so last week's close, 19.10 1/4. So well off of it. Yeah, the MEX is an 8.5% currency play. So if you don't want to be in the dollar, but you want to stay local, you jump into the MEX and earn a very high rate of return. Not as high as you could versus the yen, but it's still a very high. CAD, now CAD is an interesting one. 136.
Can I ask you one question on Mexico? It was interesting for me, and what I looked at, because you are the weekly close guy, and I listened to what you tell me. It hit that exact weekly close, and now it's been pulling back since. Does that tell you anything or give you any indication?
Sure does. It basically says money. Remember, there's $7.5 trillion trades in one FX day. So money is all over the world, and it moves rapidly. That's why we say money moves first. If you've got money, where do you want to put it? Maybe you want to bring it back home because you're not sure of the international situation. Well, park it in MEX and earn the 8.5. So yes, it traded right up to last week's close, and there's still a lot of interest to come in and sell dollars and buy the MEX.
Okay,
but I'll jump into it quick.
And now we're the loony here.
I still got because in the cat. Yeah, I'm here. Are you hearing me?
I am. You there,
Looks
Steve?
like we have maybe a.
No, you're there. I got you.
Yes, I am. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Yep.
Okay, so CAD 136.15 last week's close.
Oh, now I lost Mr. Flanagan.
Yeah, we seem to be fading in and out on you.
Yeah, we do. I don't think it's on my side because I'm still moving around. You there? I think we lost you, Steve.
Yeah, well, maybe it could be my teenagers downstairs on the internet.
Yeah, you got to give them something else to do. You got to send them to the store.
How are we doing now?
You're good now. Now you've got it. No?
I know exactly. Okay, so CAD, is an oil play. So oil price is up. You want to be long CAD because CAD's a natural exporter of oil as well. So the CAD is trading, a little bit more defensively. So there's good defensive plays outside of the dollar here, staying in North America, being long CAD and being long in the Met. The one point I would say, though, is to me, the technicals are beginning to move against the dollar short play, the stochastics, the RSIs.
Right. They seem to be low across all these.
Moving into next week, how we doing, Howard? Okay?
You're good. You're good. You're good.
Yeah, moving into next week, let's keep some things on our scale here. We got Bank of Japan on Tuesday. Interest rates are at 0.5%. Wednesday, we have the Fed, 4.5%. My call is that the Fed will cut 0.25%. Bank of England on Thursday. Given this last tranche of economic news, Bank of England is on hold. However, watch out for a sneaky 0.25% cut out of the Fed and the Bank of England next week. Bank of Japan, I believe, stays on hold. So currency markets are going to start getting active yet again.
Yeah.
Watch them carefully. We want to look at.
I love it. That's great advice from Mr. Flanagan, Mr. Money himself. We'll have him back here Monday. Big Beat will be back, so we'll have him to drill us both on what's going on, what we've done while he was away. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be tough. News you would think would move to the upside this weekend, but it's tough to want to go long over the weekend, personally, in my opinion, or to be either way over the weekend.
You got to be defensive over the weekend.
Absolutely. Quasar Markets, thank you so much. You guys keep your eyes open today as we get ready to leave. The tick is still slightly down. Advanced declines move, but now down to 5,300 on the downside. We opened up at 47, as everybody knows here. The Qs battled to try to get above 531, not able to do it, back at 528 here. So that first move to the upside looks like it's being sold off. As we've told you, that first move is usually the wrong move. So keep it on a swivel today, your head. And as Mr. Flanagan would say, Jack be nimble, Jack be quick. Don't get caught on that candlestick over the weekend. Get yourself in protection if you are long. Get some hedges in there. And we'll see you on Monday morning, everybody.